They promised it would be there. For your parents. For you. For your children. The math broke that promise. In 1935, Franklin Roosevelt sat at his desk and signed a bill that would reshape American retirement. That single signature changed what every worker expected from old age. Before that moment, retirement meant depending on your children or charity or nothing at all. Have you ever read your Social Security statement closely? That document arrives in your mailbox every year, green ink on white paper. It tells you what you have paid into the system over your entire working life. It tells you what you might receive when you turn 67. The numbers look solid. They feel permanent. But there is a sentence at the bottom that most people never read. It warns that benefits may be reduced if Congress does not act. If you see this warning on your own statement, subscribe. The pattern is forming now. That sentence is not legal boilerplate. It is a confession printed in plain sight. The confession has been there for over a decade. Most Americans walk past it like furniture in a room they stopped noticing long ago. To understand why that warning exists, I need to show you a single number. In 1950, 16 workers paid into Social Security for every one retiree collecting a check. I remember the first time I saw that ratio. It stopped me cold. 16 to 1, I thought my data was corrupted. But the data was clean. The ratio explained everything. Factory floors in 1950 were packed with young workers. Retirement lasted 3 years on average. A man retired at 65. At 68, he was gone. 16 workers carrying one man for 3 years. The math was generous and almost effortless. That world no longer exists. When did the math stop working? The collapse happened slowly. The ratio fell from 16 to 10 to 5 to less than 3. Today, only 2.8 workers support each retiree, and those retirees live to 79 on average. 14 years of checks instead of 3. The weight has multiplied by a factor of 6. In 1983, the system came within months of running empty. Congress assembled in crisis. Alan Greenspan led the rescue by raising taxes, cutting benefits, and buying 40 more years. Those 40 years are almost spent. The 1983 fix is reaching its expiration date. In 2020, benefit payments exceeded payroll tax revenue for the first time in decades, permanently. The surplus built over 40 years began draining into a deficit that grows every month. Every month, the reserve shrinks by billions. Every month, the line of new retirees grows longer. The clock runs in only one direction now, and it cannot reverse without pain. The question is not whether the money runs out. It is how we built a machine designed to fail. To understand how this machine breaks, I need to show you where your paycheck actually goes. Every 2 weeks, money vanishes from your earnings before you ever see it. The line on your pay stub says FICA. Most people glance at it and look away. That number is 6.2% of everything you earn, up to a cap of $168,600. Your employer matches it. Together, 12.4% flows out of every paycheck in America. Do you know where your payroll taxes go each month? The answer is not what most people expect. The money does not wait for you. It does not sit in an account with your name on it. It does not grow interest. Your taxes today pay for someone else's check this month. A 35-year-old electrician in Ohio funds a retired teacher in Florida. A nurse in Texas covers a former auto worker in Michigan. The money moves through the system like water through a pipe. In one end, out the other. I worked with fund flow models for 6 years. This one haunted me. When inflows exceed outflows, the surplus goes to the trust fund. When outflows exceed inflows, the trust fund covers the gap. For decades, the pipe ran full, more workers paying in than retirees drawing out. By 2024, the trust fund balance reached $2.7 trillion. That number sounds like safety. It sounds like a vault full of cash. The trust fund is not a vault. It is a filing cabinet in West Virginia. Inside that cabinet sit paper bonds, IOUs from the United States Treasury. When Social Security needs cash, it redeems a bond. Treasury sends the money. But Treasury has no savings either. It borrows to pay what it owes. The system is a loop where one government pocket pays another. What happens when more money leaves than enters? That question stopped being theoretical in 2010. That year, Social Security began running permanent cash flow deficits. Every year since, benefit payments have exceeded payroll tax collections. The gap grows wider each month. In 2024, the annual deficit hit $75 billion. The trust fund balance drops by that amount every 12 months. At this pace, the balance reaches zero in 2033. That is not a projection, it is arithmetic. When the balance hits zero, the law changes everything. Social Security cannot borrow money. It cannot run a deficit like other programs. The law requires benefits to match available revenue, nothing more. If you want to see the exact calculations from the Trustees Report, subscribe now. On the day the trust fund empties, checks do not stop entirely, but they shrink immediately, automatically, without a vote. The reduction matches the gap between revenue and obligations. Current projections show that gap at 21%. $1 in 5 disappears. A retiree receiving $1,900 per month loses $400 overnight. No warning letter, no phase-in period. The formula simply executes. But knowing the mechanism is not the same as facing what happens when it stops. The machine stops in 2033. That is the year the trust fund balance reaches zero. Not empty in a metaphorical sense, empty in the literal sense, nothing left to redeem. On that day, 67 million Americans will depend on Social Security for income. Many of them have no other retirement savings, no pension, no backup plan. The average monthly benefit sits at $1,907. That is not wealth, that is survival. Rent, medication, food, utilities. The math is already tight for millions of households. What would a 21% cut mean for someone living on $1,900 a month? It means $400 vanishing from a budget with no room to spare. It means choosing between blood pressure medication and groceries. A widow in Arizona stares at her bank statement. The numbers no longer add up. A retired janitor in Ohio calls his daughter. He needs help with rent again. These are not abstractions. These are people who followed the rules their entire lives. They paid in, every paycheck, for 40 years. They trusted the formula. Congress has 3 doors to choose from. All of them involve pain. Door 1 sits on the left. Cut benefits by 21% the moment the fund empties. Which option would you choose? Cuts, taxes, or waiting? This is the automatic option. No vote required. The law executes itself. Door 2 sits in the center. Raise payroll taxes immediately by 3.4 percentage points. That means the 12.4% rate jumps to nearly 16%. A worker earning $60,000 per year loses another $2,000 annually. The money comes from paychecks today to cover promises made decades ago. If you want to see which door Congress is leaning toward, subscribe now. Door 3 sits on the right. Wait until the crisis and face cuts of 25% or more. The longer Congress delays, the more severe the math becomes. By 2035, the required tax increase climbs to 4.2 percentage points instead of 3.4. By 2040, the gap widens further. The options shrink while the pain multiplies. Some proposals raise the retirement age to 69 or 70. A construction worker's knees give out at 55. He cannot lift materials at 60. Telling him to work until 70 is not policy. It is cruelty dressed in spreadsheet language. Other proposals cut benefits for higher earners while protecting lower-income retirees. The politics of choosing who suffers less is why no one has chosen at all. Every year of delay transfers the burden to a smaller window of decision. Every month of inaction makes the eventual cut deeper or the eventual tax higher. The trustees have warned Congress every year since 2010. 14 consecutive reports. 14 reports stating the same trajectory, the same dates, the same arithmetic. The reports sit on desks in Washington. Members of Congress flip to the summary page. They see the numbers, they understand the timeline, they vote on other things instead. Committee hearings convene, experts testify, charts display the depletion curve. The cameras turn off, the members return to campaigns, the clock keeps running. The horror is not the cut itself. The horror is that everyone in Washington already knows this math. Everyone in Washington knows the math, and yet the pattern continues. I have watched this cycle before. Different crisis, same choreography. In 1983, Social Security came within 6 months of running completely dry. The trust fund depletion was not a projection that year. It was an emergency. Congress assembled the Greenspan Commission in a panic. Cameras rolled, hands were wrung. They passed reforms at the last possible moment, 6 months before the checks would shrink. The fix worked for 40 years, and then they stopped watching the clock. What will Congress do differently this time? The honest answer is probably nothing, not until the deadline forces their hand. The pattern suggests a crisis response in 2032 or early 2033. By then, the options will be fewer, the cuts will be deeper, the taxes will be higher. 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every single day in America. That wave began in 2011. It does not end until 2030. I watched the demographic curves for years before I understood what they meant. They meant the system was never designed for a population that lives this long. In 2034, retirees will outnumber children under 18 for the first time in American history. The pyramid that supported Social Security is inverting, The base is shrinking. Medicare faces the same arithmetic. Its hospital insurance fund depletes in 2031. Two clocks, two countdowns, both running toward the same wall. The trustees write their reports. The actuaries publish their projections. What would you do if you could see the numbers clearly? This is not a question about panic. It is a question about preparation. I cannot tell you what to do with this information. I am not a financial advisor. I am someone who ran models for a living and learned to read what they say. The models say the clock is running. They say the math does not negotiate. Some people will adjust their plans. Others will wait for Washington to act. Share this with someone who is still counting on the old math. The numbers deserve to be seen. The timeline deserves to be understood. Every year of awareness is a year of preparation that waiting would have stolen. The Social Security Administration publishes these figures openly. They are not hidden. The trustees have been consistent. The projections have been stable. The warnings are clear. What varies is attention. What varies is belief. What varies is willingness to look. A father in Michigan sits at his kitchen table with a calculator. He adds his projected benefit to his savings. He subtracts 21%. He stares at the gap. That gap is real. It does not care about elections, or promises, or hope. The question is not whether you will face this math. The question is when you will see it. Some see it early and adjust. Others see it late and suffer the difference. The system made a promise it cannot keep. The numbers were always going to win. The math does not negotiate. The clock does not stop. 2033 is not a prediction. It is arithmetic.